This week, we're talking about dogs. Drew and I both have dogs, but are not experts in dogs, so we thought we'd reach out to some experts. Drew connected with a dog trainer who has a lot of experience in this.
All right. So my name is Karen Wannemaker.
Karen Wannemaker, she's the owner and lead trainer at Up a Level K9. That's the letters K and the number 9.
My business is Up a Level K9.
It's located on this beautiful 20-acre rural farm in Door County, Wisconsin.
I guess I got into dog training 12 years ago.
Karen, you'll find, is always learning and growing in her profession. So she introduced us to her mentor.
My name is Brett Bailey.
Brett Bailey of Who's a Good Boy Industries.
Who's a Good Boy Industries?
Brett is located in New York City.
Are based out of New York City, which is a very extreme environment. And we deal with dogs that have extreme emotions. So extreme emotions in extreme environments. And to simplify it, we help sad dogs be happy.
He's got over 20 years of experience.
I started in 2002. I mean, just like many things in life, it started over a girl. Met a girl, dated her for 6 months, couldn't get in her apartment because she had 2 dogs and wouldn't let me in. Eventually, I picked up a book on dog training. Didn't realize it was a study guide for one of the major dog training tests. And 6 months later, moved in. Next thing you know, I'm working with dogs. Found a lot of success, and I was like, wow, I could do this.
Stay with us. It's going to be a good one. From conversations to the natural world to complete silence, so many of us focus on what's next rather than what is happening now. I'm Listening is a podcast that dissects the importance of listening.
I'm Drew Richmond.
And I'm Brant Christofferson.
And this is I'm Listening, a podcast simply about the skill of listening.
My previous profession was ICU nurse up in Anchorage, Alaska. That's kind of where I spent my entire adult life. I ended up getting a German Shepherd, and then I thought I was a really good dog trainer because he was perfect. So I was like, well, I should probably just get another one because this is pretty easy. So then I got my other one, and she was not easy. We were spending my 4 days off from the hospital hiking 3 times a day. 2015, Shanty, the female shepherd that started all this, her and I both looked amazing because we were hiking. I had to find harder, faster, steeper, longer because I was trying to wear her out. I did everything I thought I knew and that she needed based on, Dr. Google, the breeder, friends that had had shepherds, and nothing was working. She became dog aggressive. She was great with people. And to me, it was frustrating because I did what I thought for socialization, which was take her everywhere and anywhere. Everybody pet her, every dog play with her. She's turned 2.5. My world became very small and isolated. I had to find trails in Anchorage where nobody else was, which is very hard. And then if I was out there, I was angry if anybody else came because they were angry at me because why would I bring a dog that's aggressive out there? So then I ended up getting into, I started looking at dog training schools because I had gone to private lessons, group classes. We had like a bandana put around both of us, not just the dog. That was interesting. And we sat in a corner because we're the aggressive group and we were the only one. So it wasn't even a group. So nothing came of that. And then I thought, what am I going to do? I can't live this way. All my girlfriends, we hike, we all have dogs. I can't live this way. So I ended up looking into dog training schools. So fast forward a year later, and a gentleman called and said, I heard you were interested in doing the dog training school. And I said, yes, but I just can't take 6 months off, like financially. And so they ended up asking me if I would like to be their first student. And it was going to be online. I was their first student, so I had like 6 trainers all focused on me. Finished that schooling, and then fast forward to now. I have now since had several mentors throughout these 12 years. I started my dog training business, left the ICU. I am fully a dog trainer, and now I'm considered myself like specialized in dog reactivity, dog and human aggression. Everything I'd learned from my mentors was not working. And that's kind of where I sit today is Brett is now helping me.
Karen is one of the trainers that I'm working with. And I'm actually, one of the things I'm teaching her is how to listen to her dog and all the dogs she works with. And that's a huge thing that we're actually focusing on. I would say about 40% of my business is working with dog trainers and teaching them to help dogs in kinder ways. We focus more on the emotion that drives the dog's behavior. How do we help the dog feel better? How do we put the dog in a better mood and change the behavior that way?
It was very serendipitous when I reached out to Karen and said, hey, we have this podcast about listening. And she's like, well, actually, there's some things about listening that the whole thing just came together like this perfect little puzzle. Really, really cool. Because most of the time it is my dog doesn't listen to me. I mean, Brant, you've got a dog. Does your dog listen to you?
It depends.
What my dog does listen to is the ice tray, because it just gets a little schnibble of ice every time. And man, that ice tray can come out and they could be dead asleep halfway across the house and it's boom, right there, ice trays.
Mm-hmm.
When it's time to come inside after playing outside, I'll get there. And it's always, why doesn't my dog listen to me?
So I guess we'll start off with, why would or wouldn't a dog listen to you?
Yeah.
Just like people. I'm not going to get too sciencey, but just give me a second on this. We have something in our brain called the reticular activating system. Okay? That's the most sciencey I'm going to get with you. But it's a part of our brain that decides what's important and what isn't. So if I listen to a Chinese radio, eventually I'm going to filter it all out because I don't know what they're saying. So eventually it's just going to be background noise. I live in New York City. If I hear a siren, it's nothing to me. I wouldn't even notice it because that part of the brain filters it out. When we talk to our dogs, and we all do, if every word you say does not have value, that part of your dog's brain will filter it out and it will only take things that have value. For example, the ice tray, a bag of chips, maybe the word out or park. Just like if we went to another country and we're like, oh, that means this, and we're picking out a word. Well, it's the same exact thing. So when it comes to listening, dogs are not verbal. They do not communicate verbally like we do. They communicate with body language. So if we're going to communicate to them in a language they don't understand, we need to be very specific about what words have value and what doesn't. If my dog is outside and I call my dog in, I just taught my dog that what I just said has no value. So why would it benefit? If every time I call my dog in, it gets some cubes of ice or whatever it is that your dog likes, then maybe there is value. So dogs live their life in cost benefit. What's rewarding? What isn't? And they were going to gravitate to what's rewarding, and what's rewarding has value. That is one way we could get our dogs to listen to us.
So the whole treat in the pocket while you're training your dog for those first few months, it's effective because of this cost benefit component of their brains. You're triggering these specific words because there's a benefit to them, not a benefit to you.
Absolutely. It's no different with people. Right now, I could do a job and literally get paid at the end of the month because I trust the process. Some people have to get paid that night. But if you work with someone consistently, you start building trust. You know you're going to get rewarded. You know you're going to get paid. Mm-hmm. If my dog has a memory of doing a job and not getting paid, but if I sit here and reward my dog for months at a time and never miss, eventually I can ask my dog for more, not pay it, because it's like, eventually you're going to pay me. I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
And then eventually we don't have to pay it every time because it just responds. We condition that value. But if you're going to sit here and ask your dog for something, that's literally like me going into a session and they don't pay me. And they're like, why won't you come back? You didn't pay me. Why would I do that? That's insane. But that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. So we're looking at this behavioral reinforcement just leading to pattern and training and trust over time.
You know, one of my clients recently came to me because she said, I went to a trainer, but it was all about treats. And she said, it's great, but it just became too much for my dog. And not that I'm opposed to rewarding my dog. She's like, I want to, but it just was like, she called it treat-a-palooza. I saw videos. So I was just sitting there thinking when you're saying that, like how, like at what point, even for me, my clients ask me, like, when do we fade that out? One of my go-to sayings in a lesson is eventually their reward is no punishment, which is hard for me to say, but then it's also kind of our world. You know, we do live in a punishment society. Our freedoms are there until they're not. So I guess that's one of the questions I was having, Brett. Like when you were saying that, I was thinking of that client that was just here the other night.
So when we say rewards, you know, obviously you guys were saying treats, so I was just kind of going with that.
Sure.
If you're really going to reward your dog, it doesn't always have to be treats. Now, if you want to use treats, then what you do is you take 25 to 50% of your dog's lunch, 25, 50% of your dog's dinner, you put that in a pouch, and that's the food you give throughout the day, right? So you don't have to worry about your dog being in a caloric plus. Now, when we really get into behavior modification, training dogs, we actually teach them that the reward is whatever they want. So for example, if my dog wants to play with another dog, she'll stare at me until I say, go, right? Or I'll put her in a couple behaviors and she'll be like, yes. And then I'll send her off because the reward is playing with the other dog. So she has to do some things to do that. Sometimes if Saga wants to chase a squirrel or whatever she wants to do, we could reward them with that. But that's something you really want a professional trainer involved with. You know, right now, when I sit here and teach a dog what I want them to do, I want that to be the opportunity for the dog. I don't let my dog walk next to me unless I give you the opportunity to. Mm-hmm. My dog tries to walk next to me. I get away from her. But again, if you want your dog to listen to you, then you have to give your dog a reason to want to. Mm-hmm. So if I'm on the walk and I try to get away from my dog all day, and then my dog wants to walk next to me. Well, now when I call my dog over, it's an opportunity. It's a little different when it comes to getting your dog to listen to you. You have to make sure your dog wants to.
Yeah. So setting up that opportunity for them. I think that still gets into the listening piece of why isn't my dog listening to me? I'll take my dog for a walk and my 7-year-old will have the dog on the leash and she'll be like, Luna, 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 like trying to get the dog to respond to her. For again, that 7-year-old, and for me, it's like the dog's clearly not paying attention to me or she doesn't know why we're yelling this at her.
So let me explain. If you take a child into the best arcade in the world and it has the arcade games, ball pits, like pizza, everything. And then you try to teach that child geometry. You're not getting anything.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay. You are taking your dog in an environment that may not get enough of.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is it. And you're like, hey, your dog's like, dude, you talk to me all day. Not now, Dad. Like, what? Like, really? Like, you know, and you're like, why aren't you listening to me? Why aren't you? That's like literally saying to the kid, all right, X plus Y. The kid's like, dude, what? You know, so it's the same exact thing. So we need to be realistic. What I do in a situation like that is I flood the dog with freedom. I let the dog have the environment. I stay away from the dog. And then guess what? Then I have a tug toy or a ball or something in my hand. And when the dog's ready, then I got value. You had enough of the environment. Mm-hmm. The more freedom the dog has, the less value that freedom is. If we don't give the dog freedom and fulfillment, mm-hmm. well, then how can we expect to be better than it?
Yeah.
Talk to me about what has been the evolution of dog training and what impact has listening had in the evidence, but also in the tactics.
Dog training, the older ways, there's no science behind it. It was very simple. It was compliance. Do this, avoid the punishment. And that's where it came from. It was very heavy-handed. Nobody used food. Why would they? And eventually, as time went on, we learned to train dogs more through motivation. And what happened was, a long time ago, we probably didn't have as many problems with dogs as we did now. because a lot of the dogs there had more fulfillment. People went outside more because there weren't phones that you could do everything inside with. People walked their dog more. They paid more attention to their dog. So even though there was a lot of heavy-handed corrections and punishment, there was also that more fulfillment and freedom. Now, dogs are more restricted. They're stuck in a home. They're stuck on leashes. They're stuck, but we are feeding them, with treats and more positive reinforcement, but we're also having more problems. What's happening today is that there's a divide where some people are more correction and heavy-handed based in compliance, and other people are just motivation based. And then some people are a little bit of both. The way it's evolved, the more modern ways, is changing the way the dog feels to change the behavior, focusing more on a relationship to change the response. Now we're looking at how much oxytocin does your dog produce with you? What inhibits oxytocin? Did you know that you could be shutting that down? You could actually be shutting down the love hormone with your dog. Your dog could view you as something that's just not pleasurable and it tolerates you. I meet people on a weekly basis that have dogs that don't love them. This is real. And we do a test. Call your dog over. Dog won't come to you. Touch your dog. Dog ducks its head. Wow. So right now, more of the modern ways are just more about helping the dog feel better, motivation, and getting results that way.
Yeah. So Brett, you've been talking about that relationship and response piece of having that relationship. Karen, earlier you were talking a little bit about aggression. What are you seeing often in your clients that you're helping them with?
Leash reactivity towards dogs and towards people, or both. That's the common one they've tried. They start with the force-free or positive reinforcement training only, which feels better, sounds better, and is better in some areas. But then they're like, this isn't working. Like the dog doesn't care about the hot dog anymore. They just want to go lunge at this dog. And then their world becomes small. So then they came to me, who I had a blueprint formula that over 12 years I've changed as I've worked with each mentor. But each mentor I'm looking, I think, as coming from academia, and especially being an ICU nurse, I'm all about, okay, give me the reason why, give me the formula, I'll follow it to a T. I feel very comfortable with that. And so I followed that, and I do get results, and people are happy. The dog seems happy to me, but that wasn't working on all dogs. So I guess the corroding thread to all of that for me, what really made me feel like this isn't working and that doesn't sit well with me, like even though I'm doing well as a business and my clients are happy, and it appears the dogs sometimes jump out of their car. I tell people to roll their window up. They'll jump out of their car window and run across the field to me. Like, to me, that's like, they love it. That's not enough for me, because there are still probably on one hand that I know of that aren't improved, or just a little bit. And those are the ones, because that's me. That's my 13-and-a-half-year-old shepherd. Why are these formulas not working, this blueprint? And I think that's where reaching out to Brett and his evolution too, seeing it from 3 years ago, I think he's getting results, and it has nothing to do with the tools or a formula, which is really struggling for me. And he always tells me, stop taking notes, Karen. And then he asked me yesterday to take notes, and I was like, I'm starting to see now I even told Brett the other day, this whole concept of getting your dog's consent, which is when we do what he refers to as low arousal play, that whole invite the dog in. Do you have consent to touch your dog or to play with your dog? And touching has always been normal for me. Like, understand, I've really respected dogs' boundaries. Like, I don't go up and want to touch or pet every dog, because not every person wants to be hugged. But when he put it into this perspective of your dog won't play with you, what I noticed is all my dogs will, but what I thought was being playful, and even with my employees that are going through the apprenticeship with Brett, it's actually them appeasing me. Or they're just like, can you stop, like slow down? And I'm like, she loves it, And I was thinking, I find myself very sensitive to body mannerisms. I'm just a very sensitive human being. That's where you'd put me in personality wise, which helps me with the dogs. And it really blew me away because what people don't see, I see a lot more of, like my clients don't realize. But then I'm like, oh my gosh, I've really missed out on a lot of what dogs are telling me because I've been misreading it. So that hit home and I realized, wow, there's this untouched thing. I'm not listening to them. I'm not reading what they're trying to communicate.
What are some of those things you're reading, or what are some of those things that we should be looking for or you're noticing now?
Well, in this case, specifically, my dog Bubbles, I thought that when I was doing like hand gestures to play, I thought when she was what I thought was mimicking me, she was trying to appease me and also get me to slow my mannerisms down. Like, don't do that so much. It's hard to explain without viewing something, but Brett has helped me see that. And now I'm starting to see it. Or like some dogs, if they back away or they go forward, every time we think that they're like, one dog I have is dog aggressive. And I gave her that freedom on the flexi, which the flexi is the big controversial tool in some discussion groups with dog trainers. It's terrible. I used to think it's terrible, throw the flexi out. And now I'm like, it's about the flexi. But anyhow, the flexi, the retractable leash. So now it's like I gave this dog, Mishka, a German Shepherd, the freedom to go forward. And I knew this other dog, well, I would have originally read that she was all hackled and she was barking, but she was actually kind of like communicating with the other dog. She wasn't afraid, but she was telling him, I think, like, I'm a little uncomfortable. And the other dog was really good reading her, in my opinion. And they ended up by the end, what I would have in the past from my blueprint formula, don't allow that. You keep them in a heel and then they'll work past it, or a let's go loose leash style. In this situation, she was given the freedom to do that without me intervening and putting my voice into it. So I think that's how I read the situation. And that's just really been eye-opening because that transformed everything. And now she's home playing with other dogs and it's been 3 years.
Yeah. So it's reading the situation. It's not just saying, this is happening, here is what I must do. It's really looking at it and saying, wait, what is actually happening here? And what might the best way to handle this be?
Yeah.
Yeah. Brett, did you want to follow up on that?
I think it's just important, and Karen kind of touched on it. Behavior is communication. We started this off by saying the dog doesn't listen to us. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be honest. I've never met a person who said that listened to their dog. We don't talk enough about listening to the dog. And I'll give you an example. I was walking my dog the other day down the block and she darted into the street. She was on a leash and she's never done that before. And I was like, what the hell? So I looked around and I was like, oh, maybe it's that garbage on the floor. She was curious. We kept walking and all of a sudden she goes to dart in the street again. And I'm like, the hell now? A lot of people would correct that, cut that shit out. You walk good, right? I stopped, I looked around and I was like, all right, I'll cross the street. It's not a big deal. Like, I don't care where we walk. And as I'm standing there across the street, I look over and we're right in front of the vet's office where she got violated. Mm. She was trying to get away from there. What if I cracked her and kept walking? You think my dog's going to listen to me after that? Oh, so a lot of us think that if you don't listen to your dog should listen. It doesn't work that way. Your dog's not forgiving. You have a bad experience with your dog on Tuesday. Don't expect 2 Tuesdays later to recover unless you did something to recover. If I upset my partner and she catches me doing something wrong, that's it. I don't just go on my day. No, it's flowers, spa, dinner, like dishes done. Like it's the works. I have to make up and now we can move on. The problem is we have a disagreement with our dog. We just move on with our day. You know, you didn't recover. So if we want our dog to listen to us, we need to listen to our dog, right? We need to, because that's going to create value in us. When we talk about consent, most of us are touching dogs that don't want to be touched and the dogs tolerate it. Why don't you sit on the floor and just go, come here, Saga, come here, Luna, just tap your, your chest, invite your dog over and watch your dog look at you and walk away. And then ask yourself, why did my dog do that? Doesn't my dog love me? Maybe your dog does, but your dog doesn't want to come near you right now. Now, if you get a toy and you're like, come on, run, your dog's going to get all aroused, riled up, and then play with you. That doesn't mean anything. That was you manipulating your dog's genetics. That's it. So when it comes to reading a dog, wait till instead of having your dog respond to you, respond to your dog, watch your dog. If you call your dog and it points its body away from you, it's avoiding you. If all of a sudden you sit here and start petting your dog, go to treat your dog, and it ducks its head, it doesn't want to be touched. If you bring your dog to a certain area and it starts licking its lips, ears back, and its body stiff, it's uncomfortable. One of the most important things about listening to a dog would be something that we call manding. Manding is something dogs do. It's something your dogs probably do. Manding is when a dog tells you what they want. So, for example, if I'm laying on the couch, Sagu will climb on top of me and cover my face with her stomach and sit there. That's what she does when she wants to go out, right? But the difference is it's not a hug because her head will be up and away from me. If I go to pet her, she'll push away. That's manding. My last dog, Nala, would walk over, she would stare at me, and I wouldn't do anything purposely because I thought it was cute. And then she'd eventually go to the bowl and she'd smack it with her nose. She's telling me something specific. Dogs do this all the time with us. And a lot of times when we don't listen, then they start barking. Mm-hmm. It's like, my dog's bark. No, you weren't listening to your dog's cues. They give them to you. It's just they don't speak verbally. They speak in body language, and we need to listen.
So the body language and the behavior is something we should be cueing into and listening to. We can probably get a lot farther with our relationship with our dog by doing that. Why do so many of us go back to what you were saying before of that old school compliance? Like, damn it, listen to me, or get down, or knock it off.
Yeah, you hear about this alpha thing, like, oh, you need to be alpha because you need to be in charge because there's pack. That's a pack animal, and you need to figure out who's the right, Brand.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
why,
that. Like,
why do we do that?
No, I'm in charge. I'm the alpha person, and you need to listen to me.
For two reasons. Number one, a lot of people on TV use that theory. I think with humans, it's logical. We're like, oh, that makes sense. You know, we're like, oh, I'm in charge. We're not what we call anthropomorphizing our dog. We're sitting here saying, that's a dog. It's not a human. We're not sitting here saying, wow, dogs have emotions like I do. We're actually not giving our dog enough credit to judge us. More importantly, it's immediate results in behavior. If if I didn't care about the rules of life and I told somebody, shut up, and they did, and I didn't know how they felt after that, I would be okay. Because now they have to shut up because I said so.
And you got results.
Wow, that worked, right? But the problem is how they feel about me after that. You know what I mean? And if I go the rest of my life never knowing how they feel, like most people do with their dogs, I'm going to continue to tell this person to shut up. So a lot of times we feel we get what we want because we strike fear or pain, and that will get results with some dogs. It's not going to last the long term. You know, it doesn't last.
That's that transition, right? That's the transition that you guys are referring to. You can do it this way, and you may get results. And that's kind of that older school, more aggressive, alpha type mentality. However, it's kind of a yes, and you can also do it this way.
Absolutely.
And because, like anything else, because we're human beings, and there's this relationship, and there's now more resources than ever before, and all these components, there's also some other ways you can go about doing it. And that's that transition of, and I've seen it in my lifetime. The way my dad, raised and trained our dogs is very different than how I trained my previous dogs and how I trained my current dogs. And the results are different.
Absolutely.
But I can see that transition just in my little scope of life of how training animals, and specifically dogs, has evolved.
Karen, as you talked about your journey, you've been talking very much in this idea of this growth mindset of, I tried this, so I got that, but it wasn't quite this, so I kept trying something new and working with different mentors, different people, different techniques. Where do you want to see yourself with this? You've been doing this for a while. You continue to grow with it. Where is Karen in 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road with this?
I just wrote down the same question Brant, I swear to God, we did a whole episode about finishing each other's sentences, and we just finished each other's sandwiches.
I love it.
It's incredible. I literally just wrote down, what does this look like in 20 years? You said 2 to 3 years. I believe in you. You'll do better next time. But no, I literally wrote down the exact same question. We're on the same page. What does this look like in 2 to 3, 20 years?
I think what will be exciting is that I would understand the concept of how to make, like he says, his motto, sad dogs happy. And I would be able to be creative enough to give all my clients or other trainers or my staff like that knowledge of knowing, like learning, instead of me telling people what to do, like you inherently know you live with your dog. And let me help you. I don't have all the answers, but I can tell you this is the concept and this is how we get there. And that's kind of where I'm at with Brett right now. I'm in this apprenticeship and I'm just like, I hate not knowing and I'm incredibly impatient. And he's like, that's a concept. You know, I want the blueprint and I want to feel comfortable without a blueprint, but that tells me I will understand. I feel like I'll understand dogs' body language. I'll be able to read them. And I'll even know, like, when clients say things to me, this is happening. I know what they're saying, but I get what's, I always say to people that the symptom drives the phone call to me that the dog gives, but the problem is what bothers the dog. And I want to unearth that. And I think I still to this day really want to unearth what is the problem and how can I help not only the dog, but a lot of it is just that misunderstanding and miscommunication. And I think it goes into, even in relationships with people or whatnot, you have to listen and you have to be able to be willing to like evolve and grow with each other as the years go on. And I was really hard fast. I did all what I thought was my work with my working dog, my Belgian Malinois. I did everything right. And I followed the blueprint perfectly. And she still at 7 started to aggress at other dogs. And I never allowed myself to work with aggressive dogs because I thought, who can ever take information from me if I have the same problem? But I don't want the dog or the families to go through that.
Yeah. Sounds like you're in a good spot too with that. And it's challenging. Like there's one thing to have you and your relationship with your dogs, someone you know well, but when it's someone else, people aren't calling you because they're having a great time with their dog.
Yeah.
Something repeatedly, there's some dysfunction there. And now you get to kind of play detective in a way to figure out, okay, what is going on with this dynamic? And it's not really training the dog, right? You're more training the people.
Right.
I want to talk about love. One of the things I wrote
You
down.
just want to hug it out? What are we doing?
I mean,
Okay.
we can. The virtual
Yes.
hug. We all talk about this bond, right? This bond with your dog. And you guys have talked about it a little bit too in terms of like this love and this emotional connection. Talk to me about, that you just really bonded with this animal. And we'll get away from training per se, but just talk about this relationship. Because I've had dogs in the past that have been awesome. I've had dogs in the past that have not been awesome. I got a couple dogs right now that are literally laying like, it's office time. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Dad's
love
home.
hanging
This
out
is
in there with
amazing.
you.
But my wife just gives me shit all the time. She's like, oh no, they don't want to hang out with me. They want to hang out with you. And it all refers to that bond. Well, I didn't do anything different. Yeah, maybe we spend more time with each other. What is this bond?
Without getting into too much with it, there's a difference between bonding with the dog and having a relationship with the dog, right? Those are actually two completely different things. But
go on. I like it. I like it already.
If you don't know a dog, the number one way to bond with the dog is actually share your food with them. Okay. Now everybody's going to go, but then the dog's going to beg and food at the table. Who cares?
That explains why the dog loves my toddler.
Yeah, well, obviously, yeah. Yeah, no, a toddler is the kid's best friend. They're going to stay right next to you. But because the thing is, if I hand feed a dog through training, there's an expectation. There could be frustration. There could be lack of clarity. There could be like, oh my God, I hate the fact that I have to do this. You don't know. You don't know. But if I share my food, I have something the dog wants. I have no expectation. I have the value and I'm sharing it. That's a bond. I went to Mexico to study street dogs and I met a girl there, another dog trainer. And she would constantly, like, she would help me out with so many things. And to be honest, she was from New York City, and I was like, you're in a competition. But every meal, she realized I eat more than everybody else, and everybody shared their food. She would give me half her food because she knew I was 207 pounds, and everybody else, it was all females, so everybody else is like half my weight. And she was literally like, here, take my half my. You know how much of a connection I felt? I was like, oh my God, I will do anything for you, right? So that is a way to bond with a dog. Now, the other ways to build a relationship, be predictable. Make sure that you do not do anything without consent. Do not force a dog into an uncomfortable situation. And most importantly, make sure there is clarity. Now, when it comes to the oxytocin, that is simply the love hormone that is created when a dog has a good experience with you. So if a dog goes outside and it's a very uncomfortable experience because it's fearful this, fearful that, they're having that experience with you. If you correct a dog and a dog associates with you, they're having that experience with you. And that inhibits oxytocin. So when you come home and a dog sees you, when you're on the couch and a dog cuddles with you, you give the dog a massage, anything the dog enjoys with you, fetch, play, oxytocin is produced. The way I look at building a relationship, and I've spoke to Karen about this, is you have a bank account. We're going to call it the relationship account. The more good experiences you have with your dog, money goes into the bank. The more bad experiences, money's taken out. You want a healthy relationship? Make sure you never go into debt.
As you're talking, I'm thinking, wait, are we talking dogs or are we talking dating? Or are we talking like healthy work relationships? Are we talking... Yeah, raising kids.
Do you know how often?
Do I need to are you going to send us an invoice?
So when I talk to Karen,
I'm sitting here going, "Oh my God, I need to do better at life."
Listen,
Go ahead,
I'm not even making.
I need to get my shit together after this.
When I talk to Karen and her team, and I give them feedback on their play and things like that, we literally reference dating. That is exactly what it's like. When we sit here and say, why don't I have consent with the dog? What am I doing? It has nothing to do with what you're doing there. It's what you did the other 24 hours of the day.
Yeah.
Same thing, So yeah, there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
Karen, what does bonding and relationship? And Brett called them two different things, and I totally hear that. When I ask that question, what's your response?
For me, if I just speak honestly, my bond was always spending just time with my dogs. I was realizing, but it was for me. I'm like, well, I'm with them and I do the things that I think that they enjoy. And that for me personally was like hiking the mountains in Alaska and then just spending time with them. And my one dog, I always joked I would force love on him because that's what I needed in the relationship. Sure. So Boris would come onto the bed with me. And then when I finally fell asleep, he's like, thank gosh. And then he would get down. I definitely didn't have consent. But he still looks at me. I'm like his person, but I must have done good in the bank account area. So for me and my dogs, I tried to read it. And now when I'm working with client dogs, that's where things have been a little bit challenging because I don't get to do the things that I personally would like to do. I do. And then I get feedback from other people like, oh, Karen, you do so much with these dogs. Like, how do you have a life of your own? Or you shouldn't be doing that from other trainers. Like, that's ridiculous. They don't need all of that. And what's interesting is I've kind of gone along with my intuition, which as a nurse served me well. And now as a dog trainer, what I call these sensory walks, as I have to start labeling things, when you're in business, like for your employees. So I call them these sensories where the dogs get to go out on those retractable leashes until they're safe off leash and they can go smell and do whatever. And those are the biggest posts on my social media or send to clients. I get the most feedback, good and bad, on that because I enjoy it a lot because I get bored with training stuff. But that's where I think the dog really, in my opinion, bonds with me. And we have fun and I get to be Karen and make these noises and they seem to love it. And then the owners love that. And so that's been one reason why some clients choose me over somebody else that has the same great reviews or something or what they like in style of training. That's what gets them. But that's also what has gotten some of my other mentors and friends that are in this industry. And they're just like, you're insane. Like, this is ridiculous. They don't need that. And I followed that. And then it turns out Brett now calls it decompression walks. We have these things. It's definitely different than how I did it. But I thought, oh my gosh, I wasn't crazy, and this is science, but it's biologically fulfilling. They get to go sniff and I'm following them. They're leading. It's a rarity. I think there's a problem if I'm leading on this sensory walk and I have one dog that with my 2 other employees, he's like, nope, I'm watching you. And I don't know what the difference is between them and me other than I'm a wackadoo on walks. Sometimes I say I do all these sounds. And I finally told the one employee, I'm like, I think you need to do sounds. She goes, I can't do that. That's how I feel bonding is. And I'm still learning that.
Yeah, that's great.
How many clients contact you guys and say, I have a really great relationship with my dog. It's a great listener. We have a great bond, but I want it to get better?
0.
None.
How many of them probably should be calling you?
I have people that will contact me. First of all, just so you guys know, every case I have is very serious. They're very extreme cases. So they're not really, they're the dog that just attacked the baby in the face. They're the dog that literally just killed another dog. Like they're very, very serious cases. And a lot of it's just because when you do this for a long time, you're going to get more referrals like that. But that being said, I have people that want something for their dog, but don't know what their dog needs. So I want my dog I just need my dog to walk loose on a leash. Okay. But did you know your dog is absolutely petrified to go outside? Your dog needs confidence building to walk on a loose leash, and then emotional regulation, and then conditioned relaxation. So a lot of people will focus on these symptoms, not the problems, like Cameron referenced before. I mean, I have people that said, no, everything, like they don't realize how bad their relationship is. I have a lot of clients that really break down after the session because the relationship's in front of them. We bring it out, unfortunately. And trainers as well, by the way.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing because a lot of the conversations that Brant and I have had it's always reactive. And when you go into this world of listening, as we've learned, and Brant and I do this to hopefully make the world a little bit better place, but we also do it for us, right? We want to learn. This conversation's fantastic. We want to learn and fill our brains and our emotions and fill our buckets to whatever degree with all this new and different knowledge of what is in the realm of listening. Most of what we talked about is a reaction to something that's not working. You're not listening to your body, therefore it's starting to break down, anxiety, et cetera, et cetera. You're not listening to your children, therefore there's conflict in the home. You're not listening to shitty cover bands because they're shitty. I'm sorry, I had to throw that one in there. In all seriousness, everything is reactive. And you guys probably live in a very reactive world, and you have to take a very reactive situation day after day after day and turn it into a proactive situation. You have to literally turn it on its head and go, you're doing this, this, and this, and it's creating this reactive behavior. What I need you to do is, that's terribly difficult. Brett, you just said it. Both of you have said it. Within those first conversations, those first moments, you get this emotional reaction because they're at their wit's end. How do you keep doing that over and over and over again when people are coming to you in this crisis mode and you're like, it's got to be daunting.
So I actually do want to say a couple things on this. Number one, when we walk into a client, okay, I've had clients that say, I hate dog trainers and I'm already exhausted because they've been through so many. And I love it. I'm like, yes, right? Because I know I'm going to be so different than everybody else. So, and that makes me thrive, right? I thrive for that. But my point is, when I walk into a session, I've had one of my apprentices say to me countless times, why didn't you tell them this? Why didn't you tell them that? Why would they? They're not going to do that anyway. So I'm going to tell them what works. I'm not going to tell them just what they need to hear. I'm going to tell them what they can hear, because they're going to shut me out if it's too much, right? So that's number one. Number two, they got to feel great about what they did. They got to feel great. They got to feel reinforced to continue to work. That's number two. Number three, and this is gonna be a little different. If I walk into a session and the dog's reacting, rah, 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 going off, trying to lunge and snap at me, the last thing I'm gonna do is pull out food. I don't help aggressive dogs with food. Food distracts them from everything. I have dogs that I've rehabilitated completely, and we've never used food because it doesn't matter. If I'm an introvert, I don't care how many cupcakes you give me. I'm not going to like Times Square. I'm not, right? There's no world. The only thing that's going to make me enjoy Times Square is if I have enjoyable experiences there. That's it, you know? And I don't think that's ever going to happen, but that's whatever. So, but my point is, when we're dealing with these dogs, we need to listen to the dog. And to catapult off of that, how do you help a dog by listening to it? An aggressive dog, you teach the dog that it can control the environment. I have it on video. I have a session. This dog was really aggressive for years and years. And I would start shaking my jacket. And as soon as it looked at me, I'd stop. Shaking my jacket, I'd stop. The dog learned, wait a second. All I have to do is look at you to stop you from doing that. Dog, the confidence went through the roof. They had a nanny come over, new nanny. Dog looks at you, stop. Eventually, the dog's like, I can control them. I don't need to worry about them.
I'm being heard, right? The dog's being heard.
Yeah, that's exactly
you're
it.
Responding to
me.
Yeah.
Exactly. So again, when it comes to the theme of your podcast, listen, it is literally everything when it comes to helping dogs. Listen, we don't listen enough. And if you don't listen to the dog, then how are you going to have a relationship to help the dog? Makes no sense.
These are some of the words I've written down. Awareness, control, body language, vulnerability, predictability, clarity, consent. And if I just started the podcast by saying those words, nobody in their right mind would ever think that we're about to talk about dogs. They'd be like, oh, here's another relationship podcast.
It's funny you say that.
After talking about dogs for an hour, these are the words I'm writing down. So you just apply the same things that you do as human beings? Shocking. If you like these environments that help human beings, so does your animal.
Yeah, but when it comes to dating, I literally tell people when they play with their dog, I actually say, make your dog laugh and flirt with your dog. Now, I got that. I'll be honest, I didn't make that up. I got that from someone else who's a PhD a scientist that studies dogs. So that's researched. That's scientifically backed. That's awesome. Flirt with your dog, play hard to get. But just like dating, to your point, there's no blueprint. There's no method. It's everything put together. It's alive. You know what I mean? So it's the relationship 24 hours of the day. When I get up from this podcast, Saga's going to look at me and say, all right, we going out? Now, if I sit here and say no, Saga's going to be like, what the fuck is going on? You know what I mean? So, right. But because Saga knows we're going out afterwards, she's able to relax as long as she needs to because she knows she could predict what's going to happen. So just like dating, it's not a method. It's everything together. And it has to be the right thing per that person.
100%.
Yeah, that's awesome. First off, awesome conversation, super knowledgeable people. Like I was saying to them, I need to rethink my relationship with my dog in regards to what it means to actually listen to my dog and not just stop doing that, but wait, why are you doing that? What is the underlying reason behind the behavior? And how do I meet you where you're at with that? It's just like we talked about before, like you said, with kids, relationships, at work, your body. Listen, what's actually going on? How do I best respond to that? So that and sharing food. I'm gonna start just sharing food with everybody now, and I think that's going to be the winning ticket. How about you, Drew? What did you take away from this?
You're going to share food with people, or you're going to share food with your dog?
Both, except bacon. I'm not sharing my bacon.
No, who shares bacon? I have so many things. I'll start at the beginning. I'm fascinated as we go through this podcast journey together. I am absolutely fascinated by the fact that there are these common themes in listening. And maybe it's just not, it's so obvious that it's not obvious, but like really what we talked, children, all these different topics, and they all have these common themes. And it's like, well, no shit. Well, Also, well, maybe not no shit. Like maybe this is the thing that we're ultimately landing on, that all these common themes, when it happens, it doesn't matter what you're listening to or what you want to listen to you. It's all the same. It doesn't matter if it's a kid, a dog, a boss, whatever. It's all these different things. That to me is fascinating. The other piece to this is the evolution of just me with my canines, is this whole, like, you got to be in control.
Yeah.
And you got to alpha the shit out of your dogs in order for them to listen to you. It's just, I just don't think it's true. It may have been how you did it, and it may have been what the process was. The learned behavior of how your dad or how your parents trained their dogs got passed down to you. You're like, well, I don't know. I guess that's how you do it. I guess, I'll just go train my dog real quick.
Yeah.
It's just flat out not true. And I think you meet them where they are. You respect their space. I loved the, in my mind, I was like, take a kid into Chuck E. Cheese and then sit down and go, all right, let's talk about, reading, let's do math problems. That one hit home. It was like, of course, who the hell wants to do that?
Yep.
So if they're not in the right environment to do the training, to be in that space with you, you're not going to get the results you want. No shit. But how many times do we not think about that at all?
No, we don't think about that at all. We're thinking about us.
Because I'm in charge, and now I'm ready to train you.
I'm ready. Yeah, it's not them. They're not ready.
So those are my two big takeaways.
I love it.
In the description of this podcast, you will find more information and a list of any of the sources that we used.
This podcast is created and produced by Drew Richmond and Brant Christofferson. Editing by me, and the I'm Listening theme music by Drew.
That's me.
That's you.
Brant, I will talk to you later, my friend.
We'll see you next time.
Yeehaw.
Have a good one, Drew.
Bye, Brant.